Esiet sveicināti raidījuma ciklā Uzzini, pirms dodies, Droša darba ceļvedis Eiropā. Mani sauc Andris Segliņš, esmu Nīderlandes valsts aģentūras Eiropas darba mobilitātes konsultants un šī raidījuma cikla vadītājs. Raidījumos mēs apskatām būtiskas lietas, kuras ir nepieciešams zināt pirms došanās uz ārvalstīm, tādas kā darba līguma slēgšana, darba meklēšana, reģistrācijas procedūras ierodoties valstī. Un katrs raidījums ir veltīts vienai valstī, un šodien mēs runāsim par Nīderlandi. Un uz sarunu esmu aicinājis Nīderlandes nodarbinātības dienesta Eiropas darba mobilitātes konsultantu Hani Eiversu. Hello, Hani.
Hello, Andris. Good to see you.
Yes, nice to see you. And I would like to start our conversation with some general overview of the labor market in the Netherlands. Netherlands is well known as a country for a strong agricultural sector, and is it still in the force? And maybe you have also some other important business sectors in the Netherlands.
Yeah, we are still an agricultural sector, Andries, but we only have an unemployment rate of 3.5%. So for every 100 vacancies, there are 100. No, for every 100 job seekers, there are 133 vacancies, and that points out our labor market. We only have a few surpluses, and that is in the administrative sector, concierges, and things like that. We are in need of a lot of other people, other professions, but it's a bit like the rest of Europe. But the agricultural sector has a lot of vacancies and a lot of seasonal vacancies. I will come to that later on, but seasonal vacancies are in harvesting flowers, harvesting fruits, harvesting vegetables, work in glass houses, or plant nurseries and things like that. That are a lot of vacancies for, and a lot of, as I said, a lot of seasonal vacancies. Then we do have vacancies in the technical sector, for welders, pipe fitters, engineers. I'm forgetting a few, operators, electricians. We're even offering an education as an electrician. Then we have the healthcare sector, as a lot of other countries are also in need of nurses, specialists, veterinarians, and caretakers, caregivers. So that's care assistance more than that. And also in the tourism sector, the hospitality sector, we are now currently working with a project on the islands of the Netherlands. So in the northwest of the Netherlands and in the southwest of the Netherlands, we do have some islands. And we are working together with employers who offer accommodation, because we think that is, of course, very important when you come from abroad as a mobile worker. And then in that seasonal work, there are vacancies from 6 to 8 weeks, but also to 6 months, 8 months, and even a year.
Yes, thank you. And we see that there is a quite wide range of demand for labor in the Netherlands nowadays, and the situation also in the labor market is quite good. Yes, then we go further, and if someone is interested in looking for a job and job opportunities in the Netherlands, then where to search for job opportunities? Maybe some web pages.
Yeah, there are different options, of course, but I think easy is the Eures portal, where you can find the information in your own language, and a lot of time or in English, but you can translate the information, so that's the Eures portal. I think you have already spread the website of the Eures portal, the name. Werk.nl is our national website to find information and vacancies. There's information about working and living in the Netherlands in all, different languages, and also there's a movie, and I would recommend that one. but also the social network. We do some things with Facebook here in the Netherlands, and there are a lot of websites, of course. I can mention one is seasonalwork.nl. That is our cooperation with an umbrella organization, and also these employers are checked, and there is also accommodation. But you can also check Indeed, LinkedIn, Monsterboard, Stepstone. Those are the main websites, and also a personal network. If you already know somebody from Latvia who's already living in the Netherlands, always use that. A personal network trumps everything.
Yeah, thank you. And we will put also on chat box your mentioned websites. It will be easier for our viewers to know and check also these websites.
I will certainly do that.
Yeah.
But maybe what I didn't mention is that sometimes you have forums, and there might be, I couldn't find it yet, but there might be forums of people from Latvia who are already living in the Netherlands, and that will be also a personal network that trumps everything, I think.
Yes, personal networks are still very important.
Strong, yes.
Yeah, and strong, yes.
Yes.
Yes, then if we have found some vacancy, then of course we have to apply for a job, and how to prepare a good resume, and what is maybe common things if we apply for a job in the Netherlands.
Yeah, it depends on the kind of job you are applying for. But first I would tell everybody to have an email address that is a bit business-like. So not like Joker22 or funny guy 67 or something like that. Make it a bit business-like. And again, it depends on the vacancy and the job you are applying for. But a CV should be not more than 2 A4, so that it's easy to read, and it can also be with just words. It doesn't have to be with sentences, as long as it makes clear what you have done, what your tasks were in your last work or work before that. We prefer a achronicle oversight of your education and of your work experience. And we also say adjust it a little to the vacancy. You need to be very friendly. Put something in as your personal skills, that you are friendly, open-minded, and something like that. So adjust it to the vacancy. Don't use abbreviations. And always remember that somebody from abroad is reading it. So put in your phone number with your land code, with your country code. Also think that if you've worked in a small village in Latvia, put also the country after the name of the city, because nobody or a lot of people don't know all the cities in Latvia. Age is something that you are free to mention or not. That is your own choice. A photograph, again, also a serious photo. If you are going to work as a receptionist, or is that what you are applying for, smile on the photo, but don't sit there with a beer in your hands. That is not so serious, I think.
And should candidate always include a photo, or it's also free to choose?
It is very custom to do it. Okay. But it's not obligated. But again, if you are going to work or applying for a function, a job where you are in contact with a lot of customers, with people, then I would always suggest to put in a photo. Better a photo that it doesn't mean anything or whatever, but for an employer, because also when you are going for an interview online, it's nice that they have seen your face already when you are talking to each other. And what I would say, you don't have to add diplomas, certificates, or whatever, and never a social security number or something like that, if you already have that. A certificate could be important, for example, for a welder. It has to be an actual, a valid certificate. Then I would put it in, but you don't have to put in diplomas or things like that. We are always trusting people, and if it's really necessary, then they will ask for it.
Thank you. And what is a common practice if I have, for instance, prepared my CV and application? Usually it's sent by email or contacted the employer directly, going to company or so on.
Yeah, that's what I forgot to say. Always accompany the CV with motivation letter. And you can, that's what I forgot, you can put in your CV, what is very common these days is a sort of profile, let's say 3 or 4 lines, which indicates who you are. That is always good. And always, a lot of times it's by email. Sometimes you can apply on the website of a company, and also at the Juris portal it always says where you can apply. And I wanted to mention that when it's a vacancy that we as Juris the Netherlands, so Public Employment Service, when we handle the vacancy, then it's called a reference number. That's really at the bottom of the information, and it says WBS and then a number, and that always means that we as Public Employment Service are handling that vacancy. And of course I will give you the details later for the chat.
Yes, thank you. And if we are looking for a job in another country, in this case in the Netherlands, then of course the issues of language is important.
Yes.
How important is the knowledge of Dutch language in job search?
Yeah, that is important for the vacancies, for the jobs in the healthcare sector. You know, it comes to communication, personal communication, then you really need to speak Dutch, the Netherlands language. But in general, a lot of people are speaking English in the Netherlands. So for the seasonal jobs, it's always okay to speak English. Working in the ICT sector, speaking English is okay. You can check that always when you look at the website of a company, or ask us as your advisor when we are handling the vacancy. But in general, English at a level that you can communicate, so people can instruct you and you can communicate with your colleagues or with your supervisor. So let's say a B1 is okay.
Then we can say that first most common is this foreign, not the Dutch but foreign languages, English. Yes.
Yes, a lot of people speak English in the Netherlands.
Maybe some other languages, for instance, German or.
Yes, yeah, I wanted to mention that. Well, yeah, we were working in the hospitality sector. There is a lot of German at the coastline of the Netherlands. A lot of people. We have a lot of German guests, but it's not always necessary. But it's a plus if you speak German. Sometimes you even see teams in the logistics sector with Polish people, where the supervisor is speaking Polish and the entire team. So that is. Yeah, that it's always a plus to have another language, but English is most important.
Yes, thank you. And then if our job application has been successful and the employer offer our job, then of course next step is to travel to the Netherlands and start a job. But of course, there is some registration procedures. Please tell us what is the most important registrations on arrival in the Netherlands.
The most important registration is to have a citizen service number. It's called BSN in Dutch. It's burgerservice number, but it's hard to speak. It is so a citizen service number. To say so, if you don't have that number, you don't exist in the Netherlands. If an employer wants to pay you without this number, that's not okay. So you always have that number, need to have that number, and you can ask for that number at 18 offices depending on how long you want to stay in the Netherlands. If you're planning to stay less than 4 months, you can do it at a RNI registration. That is for people who are intending to stay no longer than 4 months in the Netherlands, but still have an address in their home country. And that is even quicker than when you are planning to stay for a longer time, because then you have to go to the municipality, and that might take a few weeks. And if you go for the RNI registration, you that will be handled a bit quicker. But you always have to make an appointment for that. You have to be there in person, and you have to have a valid ID with you. So that is really important. But that's really the first thing to do. And you see a lot of companies who are accustomed to work with people from abroad, in general, they will help you to get the number.
Yes, and it's very important to get this number.
Yes.
To legally work and then get also some social security, of course.
Yeah, it's for social security reasons and also for tax reasons.
Yeah. Then when we start our employment, then of course we have to conclude an employment contract. And please tell us what are main conditions in the Netherlands for employment contracts.
We do have a lot of temp agencies in the Netherlands. I will come to that later on. But in general, we say no before you go. So have a contract in a language you can understand. I can understand that an employer cannot translate it in the Latvian language, but if you come to the Netherlands, you need to speak English. So in English, it would be okay. At least that you as employee understand what this contract means. That is the most important thing, and have it before you go, as well as to know that you have an accommodation. I always say we have a lot of bridges in Amsterdam, but they are not made for sleeping under. So you need to have accommodation. That is the most important thing. Contracts differ per sector. We do have a lot of collective labor agreements, so there are differences, and contracts are always individual. You can negotiate some things about your contract, of course, and you need to have at least the minimum wage. We do have a legal minimum wage in the Netherlands. It's about 1,934 euros per month gross, and in general, a working week is about 38 to 40 hours. In your contract needs to be, we do have 6 official holidays in the national holidays in the Netherlands, but you also need to have 5 to 4 weeks of holidays per year. And the mentioning of days off should be in your contract. Then there is 8% legal holiday fee, and that is normally paid in May, but sometimes when you're only working 3 months, they can do it after your work is finished. But you see, with temp agencies, sometimes they include it in your wage per hour, and that is something you should be aware of. I will tell that later on when I talk about the temp agencies. So again, and the salaries do depend on the sector, on the collective labor agreement, but in general you can say vocational about 1,800, the minimum wage, or 2,000 euros per month, till 3,500 per month gross, and bachelor about 3,000 to 4,500, and the master between 4,000 and 5,000 euros.
Thank you. And yes, you already touched a bit information about this temporary agencies in Netherlands. Yes, and I know that it's quite popular and widely spread in Netherlands. And what is important to know when working for them?
Yeah, we do have a very flexible labor market in the Netherlands. You should be aware of that. It's important to know. And we, as a public employment service, we think most important is fair mobility. It's a great opportunity in the Europe, but it should be fair. And fair mobility means that you have the same rights as and the same obligations as an employee from the Netherlands. And we think but it's not what we can, it's not obligated, but as the European Employment Service, and the PES in the Public Employment Service in the Netherlands, we ask from an employer in the Netherlands that the job should be at least for 3 months and at least 32 hours per week, and preferably not with a temp agency, with a normal temp agency contract, because we think when you come from another country and you leave everything behind, you should be certain of 3 months of work at least. Of course, when you come for a seasonal job, it's only 6 weeks or 8 weeks. That's okay, but you know that before you go. That's the important thing. And to be honest, the temp agencies are widespread in the Netherlands, really widespread. Again, the contract needs to be in a language that you can comprehend, that you can understand. And temp agencies do have, they call it phases. You start always with a phase A or a phase 1. And that is something to be really aware of, that you need to check that in the contract, because there can be what we call a temp agency clause. And that means that you can have 1 week of 20 hours, 1 week of 30, 1 week of 10. And we don't think that is fair mobility, because you have to be able to pay for your accommodation and your food and things like that. But if you know it before you go, then it's okay. But that is the important thing. Checking the contract if hours are guaranteed. What is the salary? Does it include the holiday fees? Because then your salary looks a little higher, because that is already included, that 8% per year. So that might make a difference. Have a good description of the work. Also know what your work location is, and how is the transport for your work location to your accommodation, because that is a plus point of job temp agencies. In general they always offer accommodation. Is there a compensation for the travel? Because traveling from the accommodation to work, when it takes 2 hours, what sometimes happens in this small country, then you should know if partly it is working hours. Always ask for which employer, because the temp agency sends you to a certain employer. So again, know before you go, know where you are coming from. You can always check if the temp agency is a member of the umbrella organizations like ABU and NBBU. That means that things are guaranteed, how they are handled by this temp agency. It's not obligated to be a member, but it's a sort of guarantee. So if somebody wants to apply, I would always check if they are a member of that umbrella organization, because they also have collective labor agreements, and often translated on their website. So that is quite important. And we always send people, if they are applying via us, a sort of a handout with all this information in this, and where you can check this information. But again, know before you go, and we always advise that your housing accommodation is separate from your working contract, from your labor contract.
Yes, then the suggestion is if we plan to work for temporary agencies, always check all information included in employment agreement and all other details.
Yeah, and ask. Yeah, and always you can always ask us as your advisor or you as your advisor to give some advice. We're not lawyers, but we can check some things for you.
Yes, then when we are going to work for another country, then of course one thing is to find a job. Another thing is to find a housing. And you already said that some companies offer some housing possibilities, but if a person has to find some housing, then where to search and how to do it in the Netherlands?
Yeah, we call it the Randstad, and that means Amsterdam, The Hague, Rotterdam, Utrecht. These are the places where it is really, really hard to find accommodation. When you find it is really, really expensive. So think about work in another part of the country, and it's housing is nearly everywhere difficult, but in this Randstad, so the western part of the Netherlands, it's really, really difficult. But as I mentioned, on the islands in the north and in the southwest, we work for this project. This summer, we work with employers who offer accommodation. But you can look for accommodation if you already know somebody in the Netherlands. Again, personal network is really, really important. And it has to match with your work. You know, when your job is for, let's say, 6 months or a year, there's another sort of accommodation than when you're only coming for 6 weeks in the agricultural sector. But there are a lot of ways to find it. As I said, networks, but also we still have newspapers. Sometimes it's offered there. But in general, I would say ask the employer for help. Sometimes the employer says, we have accommodation for you, we'll put you in a hotel for a few weeks, and then colleagues and the employer will help you to, in general, they will help you to find some accommodation. But it's quite difficult. It's really a point in the Netherlands. And there are also websites, and I think later on I can name some companies or big companies where you can find accommodation. But again, it's could be quite cheap. Quite expensive.
Yes, and maybe you can also give some examples of some costs of living to compare our prices and then your prices.
Yeah, to be honest, we are a lot more expensive than you are, but take in consideration that the wages are higher, of course. But there is a lot to do in the Netherlands. A colleague of mine used to name the hamburger index, but I couldn't find the cost of the hamburger in Latvia. But sorry. But if you say again, and also in the west of the Netherlands, it's a bit more expensive than in the eastern, northern, southern part. But let's say a milk is €1.35. Bread, so in general, average. Bread, if you have from the bakery, then it's about €2.30. Eggs, 10 eggs are about €3 or €4. Boneless chicken, 500 grams, it's about €10. Cheese, we have a lot of cheese, but I think it's very expensive, but it's about 500 grams, which costs you about €6. And a cinema, for example, is €8 to €11.50. So there is a bit of, we are more pricey. It's about 35%, sometimes to 50% more expensive than in Latvia. I'm sorry, it's not no another way. But again, the wages are the same. Are higher.
Yeah, but it's good to know and to be prepared.
Yes, and what I didn't mention before, sorry, I forgot, when you have a contract with a temp agency, sometimes the health insurance is included. But if it's not, you have to, because in general, health insurance, you have to pay privately. And it's about €135 per month average. That is also a reason why our salary is higher. But it's a personal insurance, private insurance.
Yes, thank you, Hannah. And at the end of our conversation, I would like to ask a question, why to choose the Netherlands as a country for living and working?
Yes, I would say if you were going to work here for a longer period of time, it would be the balance of life and work. So, but if you're only coming for 6-8 weeks or 3 months, then it's a bit hard to find that balance, I think, because you do want to work a lot, I think. But we are quite open-minded, and the working culture, there is not a lot of hierarchy. So if you have a meeting with your colleagues, everybody is expected to contribute. We do say you don't in English there is not a difference, but we have a difference of the polite form of you and a more social form of you, and that's really often used. I can name my manager on a first name base. I think we are multicultural, and I think in general quite social. We're interested in other cultures, and in general, conditions in the Netherlands are quite good arranged. We do have a good infrastructure, quite well organized. I won't say everything, but it's quite well organized, like healthcare, social systems, education, and as I mentioned, infrastructure is okay, I think. And we do have different weathers. We do have seasons as the weather.
Thank you, Hannah, for interesting and useful information. Un paldies arī mūsu skatītājiem, ka pievienojāties mūsu raidījumam. Un, ja jums ir nepieciešama papildus informācija par darbu meklēšanu citās Eiropas valstīs, tāpat par sociālo drošību, dodoties uz citām Eiropas valstīm starpvalstu nodokļiem vai arī atgriežoties pēc tam no ārvalstīm, tad noteikti varat skatīties mūsu NVA mājaslapā, Eures sadaļā. Un, ja nepieciešama jau tāda individuālāka un detalizētāka informācija, noteikti varat kontaktēties ar mūsu Nodarbinātības valsts aģentūras Eures konsultantiem. Paldies vēlreiz Hannai un skatītājiem un uz tikšanos nākošajā raidījumā. Paldies!